Ezekiel 1 talks about four creatures: the human, the lion, the ox, and the eagle. There's a long history in the church of equating those four creatures with the four Gospels. In order, Matthew is associated with human, Mark is associated with lion, Luke with the ox, and John with the eagle. It's a very interesting way of understanding and, can we say, symbolizing what is going on with the Gospels. The first Gospel, of course, is Matthew. And Matthew is associated with the human. So we could say that Matthew portrays Jesus in his humanness. How so? Well, first of all, Matthew is the first Gospel, so it's something like a bridge between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament presents Second Temple Judaism toward the end, of course, and so it portrays Jesus, Matthew that is, portrays Jesus as a Jew, someone who is a member of Second Temple Judaism. And not only that, Jesus in Matthew is fulfilling the Old Testament. So it's linking up closely with the Jewish flavoring of who Jesus was. One other aspect there is Jesus is sometimes seen in Matthew as a second lawgiver, especially in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus comes and sits down to teach. And he expresses his view of how life should progress. So we see Jesus really in his human element. We can even say Son of Man. The next gospel is the Gospel of Mark, associated with the lion. One of the key words in the Gospel of Mark is euthus, the Greek word euthus, which is often translated immediately. So what is a lion like? Well, a lion roars, first of all. Just like in Mark, Jesus is like a roaring lion, attacking his opponents. But also, the immediately comes into play because a lion immediately pounces here and immediately pounces there and immediately pounces in another place. And Jesus is pouncing all around in the Gospel of Mark. He's in this place and that place and this place. There's an energy that we find in the Gospel of Mark. In Luke, Jesus is portrayed as the ox. What's an ox? An ox is a beast of burden, we say. That is to say, the ox carries the burdens for people. And that's what we find in the Gospel of Luke. Jesus carries people's burdens. If we even go to Luke chapter 4, where we find the so-called programmatic statement of Jesus, where Jesus tells what his ministry is all about. He mentions restoring the sight to the blind and release to the captives and so forth. That's Jesus carrying our burdens. When we come to the Gospel of John, we see Jesus portrayed as eagle. What's an eagle? An eagle soars high above, looking down and surveying the whole. When you think about that from a historical perspective, John is not so interested in all of the details, although some of the details are there, but he's more interested in what those details mean. We can say he's interested in the big picture of what Jesus is all about. Just like when you're high above looking down, you can see so much laid out in front of you. And that's John's idea. John is interested in what's going on. What is the meaning of all of these details that he records and talks about? But also we find there the pre-existence of Jesus. He's seeing not only the big picture of Jesus' life on earth, but even the bigger picture of Jesus as Son of God, pre-existent from the very beginning. So we see four creatures associated with the four Gospels. Matthew with human, lion associated with Mark, Luke is associated with the ox, and John associated with the eagle. Now, one of the things that I want to impress upon you is that each of the four Gospels takes a unique perspective. We can say it's like four portraits of Jesus, and each one painting a true picture, but from its own perspective. One of the things that the early church attempted was a document called the Diatessaron, which compiled all four Gospels into one flowing narrative. The church rejected that as heretical, actually. It's a warning to us that we really need to pay attention to the four unique portraits. When we try to combine them, we end up losing the uniqueness. And when we lose the uniqueness, we lose that perspective, and we are impoverished in our view of who Jesus was. One of my experiences when I was in my graduate school, I was invited to be the assistant to a professor who had retired. Actually, he was coming back after retirement, so he was very, very well-established Gospels scholar. And it came time for the midterm, and he said, "Here's what's going to be on the midterm. I'm going to give you statements that occur only in one Gospel, and you have to tell me which Gospel it was." I thought, oh my, there's no way. You can't do that. You have to memorize all four of the Gospels completely in order to do that. But then as we progress through the course, realizing, yes, each Gospel does have a unique perspective. And then when you hear those unique statements, you know which one it is because it sounds like the one that it is. So it's a really useful and important task to really understand what is each Gospel doing, what is it contributing to us, because we don't want to simply conflate all of the portraits. When you do that, you lose so much. I think it's a lifelong task of learning what is each Gospel really trying to tell us. And I found it very, very helpful to use these symbols because they are a shorthand way of remembering, yes, that's what's unique about this Gospel. And then all of the perspective that comes along when we understand that symbol. So I invite you to associate in your mind each of these Gospels with each of these creatures.